Hi all. We're just going to give it a couple minutes for people to trickle in, and then we'll get started right away here. All right, so good morning and afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by the CHA, NGI Capital, Econa Power, and Ionomer Innovations. So my name is Tony Saha, Marketing Communications Manager at the Canadian Hydrogen Association, and I am speaking to you today from Edmonton, Alberta, which is the traditional, ancestral, and ceded territory of many First Nations, such as the Cree, Dene, Anishinaabe, and Blackfoot. So for those of you who are not familiar with the CHA, we are a national industry association established in 2009 with a history that spans over 50 years with regional affiliates in BC, Alberta, and Ontario. We support our members with advocacy, communications, networking, and government relations. So as you can see, all of our members here, we represent over 200 Canadian companies, academia and consultancies, research agencies, and end users who are developing, demonstrating, and deploying hydrogen technologies in Canada today. If you or your organization is not yet a member of the CHA and are interested in learning more, please feel free to reach out to me after this webinar. So some housekeeping rules before I introduce our speakers for today. Please note that this webinar will be recorded and held in accordance with the CHA's competition law compliance policy. Please feel free to enter any questions that you may have in the chat section. We will be sure to get to them during the Q&A segment following the presentations, where you will also be able to turn on your mics and cameras. So our first speaker of the day is John Adams, President and CEO of NGIF Capital. He manages clean tech venture funds, including Clean Tech Ventures, a $50 million fund focused on natural gas and hydrogen. As managing partner, he leads the fund strategy, operations, and portfolio of early-stage startups. Dr. Farhan Narazi is a hydrogen energy expert leading contracts, project management, and partnerships at NGIF Capital Corporation. With a PhD in advanced thermochemical cycles for hydrogen production, he's led innovative projects with Canadian utilities, from techno-economic analyses to hydrogen-powered locomotives and municipal waste gasification. So Gary Schuback is the Chief Commercial Officer at Econa Power with 25 plus years of experience developing and commercializing new clean energy technologies. He also has extensive experience with both technology development and business development, and has helped navigate several products from early prototype to commercial sales. And last but not least, Benjamin Britton is the Chief Technology Officer at Ionomer Innovations with a background in electrochemistry. Bringing together the initial funding and team for Ionomer, he now oversees business and technology strategy and was named one of Business in Vancouver's top 40 under 40. And so with that, I will give it off to our first speaker of the day. John, take it away.
Great, thank you, Tony, and good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I'm just going to share my screen here, so just give me a minute. Tony, can everyone see my screen?
Yep, you're good to go.
Super. Okay, thank you. So again, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is John Adams. As Tony mentioned, I'm the President and CEO of NGIF Capital. We are an investment firm located in, we have 3 locations, Calgary, Montreal, and Ottawa. I have a team of dedicated professionals across Canada, and NGIF Capital operates a number of things. within the context of natural gas and hydrogen. For the purposes of this presentation, we'll be talking about our venture fund and the investments in hydrogen that we have made. We've been around since 2021. We started, as Attorney may have noted to some of you before, through the Canadian Gas Association located in Ottawa. I started there back in 2016. And the Canadian Gas Association wanted to essentially fill a gap in the innovation sector within natural gas. And so they started what was once called the Natural Gas Innovation Fund. We use the acronym NGIF. But once upon a time, it was the Natural Gas Innovation Fund. We were a program inside of the Canadian Gas Association. And through that program, we provided an industry grant to startups so they could de-risk a technology and get it closer to the natural gas industry and market. So that program went very well. We actually ended up spinning out our own company, as you can see at the top in the blue box, NGIF Capital. That organization has been running since 2021. And that organization has essentially two functions. It's for-profit and it's non-profit. We'll talk about the right side, our Clean Tech Ventures Fund 1, as it has two investments in it that are hydrogen, Ionomer and Icona. But on the left-hand side, I should note that we have an NGIF accelerator. This is our nonprofit. This is our flagship work, our industry grants program on the bottom left, and our NGIF Emissions Testing Center program. These are programs essentially dedicated to natural gas or hydrogen. And in the industry grants program, you'll see a little bit later, we have a number of hydrogen projects that we provided funding for. On the capital side, again, we have two teams, capital and accelerator. The capital side is made up of an investment team that includes Akil Abat, Isaac Silva Aboob, Abdullah Kadir, and Haley. This is my team. We essentially review and hundreds of investment opportunities for natural gas and hydrogen, and we've made 13 investments to date. This group is a cross-section of gas, hydrogen, legal, finance, and investment, and through this pooled effort of intelligence and know-how, we make our investments through our Clean Tech Venture Fund. So just to kind of give some background on our first fund that we operated out of NGIF Capital. Back in 2019, 2020, I went to when we were spinning out the NGIF into its own organization. We also wanted to raise a venture fund specifically for natural gas and hydrogen, and so we did. We closed the fund back in 2021, $50 million seed fund. So there's various types of venture funds, seed and Series A and B and so on. This was a seed fund, seed and Series A. We've made some Series A investments, and this fund was dedicated to investments to scale up specific high impact clean technology solutions providers for hydrogen and natural gas. This fund writes checks of about $2 million. If you look at the left, it's a 10-year fund. We are 4 years into this 10-year fund, so we're almost finished our commitment period. Our target was 15 investments. We made 13, and you'll see over the next, if you follow this fund over the next year or so, we'll deploy our remaining initial capital into investments, and then we will continue to grow, work with the companies to help them grow through follow-on financing and through other support that we provide to those companies, which Gary and Ben might speak to you about. The investment focus on the right bottom. So two things. We want to, this group of investors, which I'll speak to you about, their goal was to either create an emissions reduction opportunity along the natural gas value chain, so that's natural gas production, natural gas pipeline transmission, and distribution, storage, and end use. And the other path was to create low-cost hydrogen production, including for decarbonation of the natural gas through pipelines and distribution. And so the fund's running quite well. Again, we've got about 6 years left of deployment, and we are looking at other types of investment funds that we will build for the sector. On the Fund 1, our limited partners, these are our investors, and so I won't go through them in detail other than to say at the far left, if you look at the logos, we have three three energy producers. They're oil and gas companies. We focus on natural gas, so Tourmaline Oil, ARC Resources, and Birchcliff Energy, and so they represent the upstream side of things for natural gas. We have TC Energy, a large pipeline transmission company across Canada, and we have three distribution companies, ATCO, Fortis, and TriSummit, of which I believe a couple of those are in your membership base, as they are also have an agenda for hydrogen as well. And then again, on our portfolio, I noted we have 13 companies that we've made an investment in since 2021. We are 2025. I won't go through them all other than to say you'll see on the logos on the left, you'll see Ionomer there, and Ekona. Ionomer was our third investment, and of course in hydrogen you'll hear about their polymer and membrane technologies that they create. Ben will speak to you about that. These provide advantages to fuel cells, hydrogen production, and CCUS. And then Gary is going to talk about Ekona, our fourth investment we made into hydrogen production. And so very successful ventures that we've had to date. And I'll just go through the rest of the technologies in some way are impacting natural gas, whether it's reducing an emission or detecting an emission or quantifying an emission or reducing an emission. We have made a couple of investments in environmental performance, and I note Carbonet as one of them with their chemistry solution to clean industrial water. So those are our investments in our Fund 1. Just to speak a little bit on our two hydrogen investments, Ben's going to go into it more. If you look at the right at the top, you'll see initial investments. We've made two investments in Ionomer. We did in the first investment in 2021 at their Series A stage. Their round size was 15 million US. And you can see we're in with a good group of co-investors, including Shell Ventures and Chevron Ventures, Palisite, and others. And then on our follow-on investment 2 years later in 2023, we joined other investors, including Bekaert, Saikase, Samsung, Tupras, and others. So you can see there's indeed a strong industry commitment into hydrogen investments. And so again, Ben will talk to you a little bit more about that one. And then for Ekona, Ekona is in a different way, a special one for us. As I noted to you before, we have an accelerator, our nonprofit. And in that accelerator, we have industry money that's in the form of R&D money, which we pool, and we award grants through a competition. And Ekona 2 times came to us with a value proposition. So we've provided a grant to them at the very early stages of their TRL. Then we follow it on with a second grant later on as their TRL progressed, and then furthered that with out of our investment fund back in January 2022. We participated in their Series A round. It was a $79 million round, and you can see there Baker Hughes led it, but we participated with Mitsui, ConocoPhillips, TransAlta, Continental, BC, and many others. And again, Gary can speak to you more on that. Just to kind of in our nonprofit accelerator that we run, I'm also the CEO of that. We have 18 hydrogen-focused projects in there. So again, these are projects; they're not investments. We provide a grant. That grant is non-dilutive, and the grant is to help de-risk the technology at a pre-commercial stage. So with our money, we put $7 million into these 18 startups, and their total project cost is $138 million. So it's a great leveraging effect for our investors. And I won't go into them all, but you can see we call them recipients because they're a recipient of a grant. This program is very similar to, if you're across Canada, the previous SDTC or NRCan, Alberta Innovates, BC Ice Fund, Emissions Reduction Alberta. Those we co-grant our grants on top of theirs. And so if you look down the list at the left, you'll see a combination of startups that we all quite know, and many of you might be on this call. We've also provided a grant to universities. You can see Econa's up there twice, and many others that you might know. So I'll stop there and stop sharing my screen, and Toonie, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thanks so much, John, for that presentation. Our next presenter is Farhan. If you go ahead and share your screen now.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to quickly share my screen and then I'm going to begin my talk. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yep.
Okay. So again, hello and welcome to today's session on making hydrogen affordable, the challenges, opportunities, and innovations in the cost reduction. I am Farhan Razi, the project management lead for the Industry Grants Program at NGIF Accelerator. My talk today focuses on the hydrogen production pathways that are most relevant to the natural gas stakeholders. I will be discussing economics, cost drivers, and opportunities that align with the existing natural gas infrastructure and expertise. So, as we all know, hydrogen serves as a versatile decarbonization tool, particularly valuable in hard to abate sectors like steel, chemicals, and heavy transport. It offers long duration energy storage capabilities and produces only water as a byproduct when used. For natural gas stakeholders, hydrogen presents a significant opportunity for feedstock valorization, that is creating new markets and ensuring long-term relevance of existing infrastructure. In this context, three hydrogen pathways are most relevant to the natural gas stakeholders. First of those is the gray hydrogen. It is produced via a process called steam methane reforming without carbon management and accounts for about 95% of the global hydrogen production today. Next is blue hydrogen. It utilizes natural gas with the carbon capture technology to significantly reduce emissions. And the last one is the turquoise hydrogen. It employs methane pyrolysis to decompose natural gas into hydrogen and solid carbon, avoiding CO2 emissions entirely. Let's shed some light on these pathways one by one. So when we talk about gray hydrogen, it is a mature technology in terms of the hydrogen production with the natural gas pricing as the dominant cost driver. Production costs typically range between $1 to $2 per kilogram, making it currently the most cost-effective method at scale. However, it emits about 10 kilograms of CO2 per kilogram of hydrogen, creating a growing carbon liability as environmental policies continue to strengthen. Next is blue hydrogen. Blue hydrogen adds carbon capture to the natural gas feedstock, typically capturing about 90 to 95% of the CO2 emissions. Production costs range between 1.5 and $3 per kilogram, depending on the carbon capture rate, CO2 transport or storage costs, as well as the carbon credits. Its key advantage is leveraging existing assets and expertise while providing a decarbonization pathway, an evolution rather than a revolution for the industry. Turquoise hydrogen splits methane into hydrogen and solid carbon without CO2 emissions. Beyond emissions reduction, the solid carbon byproduct creates a potential secondary revenue stream. It typically requires less energy compared to water electrolysis, but more than the conventional SMR process. with costs currently estimated at $1.5 to $2.5 per kilogram. In terms of the in terms of unpacking the costs, and let's shed some light on the main factors that drive hydrogen prices. When it comes to gray hydrogen, the costs are primarily dominated by the natural gas pricing with minimal capital expenditure contribution. In terms of blue hydrogen, the cost depends on both the gas prices and the carbon capture and storage costs, with the infrastructure proximity significantly impacting the economics. When it comes to turquoise hydrogen, the costs include the gas and the process heat, offset by the potential carbon material revenue, which is a unique economic advantage. So if we talk in terms of the road ahead and what is going to be the pathway looking forward, um, natural gas-based hydrogen benefits from the established infrastructure, feedstock availability, and the industry expertise. Because these technologies are quite mature and methane is considered as the primary feedstock when it comes to the existing bulk hydrogen production. Um, so it provides an inherent advantage to the natural gas industry, contributing to the hydrogen supply chain. Technology innovation will drive costs down as research and development keeps going on into the efforts to bring down the costs of the material, the cost of the processes, and the various chains in bringing the hydrogen from the producer to the end user. Advances in the carbon capture technology for blue hydrogen and improved pyrolysis techniques for turquoise hydrogen are one of the mainstream aspects that will be playing an imperative role in bringing the costs of these technologies down. In terms of policy support, carbon pricing, clean fuel standard recognition, and infrastructure investment will accelerate the adoption and improve economics of the process. So all in all of these different aspects play a significant role uh, to potentially reduce the cost of the hydrogen that is primarily driven by the natural gas as the main feedstock. Um, if we summarize this discussion, when it comes to the gray hydrogen, currently the cost is between $1 and $2 per kilogram, but future is constrained by the carbon policies because of the consistent emission and no particular emissions abatement technologies associated with the gray hydrogen at the moment. For blue hydrogen, existing costs are between 1.5 and $3 per kilogram, which are predicted to reduce to between $1 and $2 per kilogram by 2030, given the excessive R&D and technology maturation. When it comes to turquoise hydrogen, um, it shows particular promise for the natural gas stakeholders, potentially reaching $1 to $1.8 per kilogram by 2030. Understanding these projections will certainly allow the strategic investment decisions that leverage existing assets while positioning for the future opportunities. With this, I would like to end my presentation and also stop sharing my screen. Thank you very much. Over to you, Tony.
Thank you so much, Farhan. Our next presenter will be Ionomer Innovations. Ben, if you could please start sharing your screen.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, everyone, and good afternoon. So Ionomer's vision is to address three pillars that together, as John mentioned earlier on, would be a significant carbon offset. By 2050, according to IEA and other models, this is more than 10 gigatons per year, equal to global transportation or all of North America. And of course, we address the 80% of energy that is contained in molecules, just like all hydrogen. So the rate limiting factors for deployment of more renewable energy that we can turn into molecules is really the grid interconnect and minerals. And through AEM electrolysis, you can offset these issues and act as a grid service, really enabling the deployment of more renewables and having a synergistic effect with the electrification of things. So this is the vision for hydrogen. Hydrogen is also unique in its ability to be stored just like natural gas. So there's an existing infrastructure where you can store for mere pennies per kilogram, even using the most expensive models that have ever been made out of US national labs, you end up having an orders of magnitude reduced cost for long-term energy storage compared to any other solution. Basically, any storage above 100 hours must be hydrogen or a natural gas equivalent. You can turn hydrogen into natural gas in a relatively efficient process as well if you really need to. And this is the story of hydrogen. So by again, through all of the most advanced models, this is what you end up seeing for long duration energy storage. So there is room for obviously lithium and flow batteries, but hydrogen ends up forming the bulk. And even Tesla agrees with this. When you look at the inflection point of renewable energies, especially in China, these predictions are coming true. We don't see this quite so much in the West, but they see on the order of 2.5 terawatts of hydrogen, green hydrogen generation by 2050. And again, this is on the basis of actually the storage cost of hydrogen. So how do we get to more cost-effective green hydrogen? The answer is acting as a grid service with energy arbitrage. The issue today with incumbent systems, PEM and traditional alkaline systems, is that even if you have low capital cost of this, it's really the electricity cost is the driver. The electricity cost is the driver because these systems are part of base load. If you can create electrolysis as a grid service, you can actually break this link and have low cost hydrogen. And so if you look at even the high capex systems with the low capacity factors, if you look on the x-axis here, capacity factors can range from 25 to 75% with intermittent renewables. And today, on a capex basis, there is some challenge getting to cost-effective hydrogen. However, if you can operate with true intermittency, this comes way down. And with scale costs, especially around alkaline technologies, you can end up being in this $1 to $2 per kilogram band that is necessary for the mass adoption. So this is the vision for intermittent renewables direct paired to hydrogen. The interconnect queue is where renewable energy goes to die. 70% of renewable energy deployments are actually canceled in trying to connect into the grid. If you can go direct from wind and solar into hydrogen, that is the true game-changing play. And this requires an advance at the electrolyzer level. PEM systems cannot stand this type of on-off behavior. They're good at high-low, but not at on-off. And so they need some sort of connection or buffer, and it can't be on solar. Traditional alkaline systems have safety issues when you ramp like this. And so an AEM system really comes in. So Ionomer, we're focused on producing materials for AEM water electrolysis. These are systems that survive in hot caustic. We also have PEM systems. We work on these primarily for fuel cells. But we have both chemistries. These are synergistic in many applications. These are also both necessary in CO2 electrolysis, which is our third pillar. And our materials look like this. Our anion exchange materials are woven reinforced large materials based on a chemistry that is the only known system that is indefinitely stable in hot caustic. And so you can operate these in traditional alkaline type conditions and have orders of magnitude better barrier for the gas crossover. And so you get to all the benefits of alkaline. You can actually use the balance of plant of alkaline, which has been battle tested for 100,000 hours, and just have a separator that is different, something that actually blocks gases and is cohesive, as opposed to being a porous diaphragm, which is the current state of the art. And of course, these are our Permian systems. We have various composite-based systems that we provide as Ionomer. As John already mentioned, we're backed by a consortium of industrial titans. And our three foci really being green hydrogen and CO2 capture and utilization into things like ethylene and the carbon monoxide supply chain, which could enable 70% of chemicals and over 90% of plastics to be carbon negative. So these are high impact verticals that we're chasing right now. AEMs also eliminate the need for iridium in electrolysis systems. This is a critical overcoming of the only mineral limitation really for the scale up of these types of systems. And again, the rest of the supply chain is well tested. And what this looks like is really we are the middle of the sandwich. So there's our materials, there's two electrodes, which may or may not use our materials as binding agents. These get incorporated into stacks and then megawatt systems. And so this is, people talk about AEM stacks. This is what they end up looking like, just like PEM stacks. They're the same form factor and essentially the same operating conditions. The only group in the world to actually set targets for this is the European Union. It essentially breaks models because of the capital efficiency for others. And so the traditional challenges with the AEMs are that the membranes don't last and you end up with short lifetimes. So 10 years ago, the average life of a system was 100 hours. This is not industrially relevant. We have shown, and I will show later, over 15,000 hours of operation with intermittency that is relevant to the grid. And that is the major advance. The other major advance has been in the catalyst. Traditional alkaline catalysts are designed for 6 molar caustic. We run in 1 molar caustic. There's numerous advantages at running at pressure with this. You don't have to get into expensive steels. And so this is what we've been focused on. These are also PFAS free. This is an existential threat to most of electrochemistry. We eliminate it. If you look at the targets, we're actually already exceeding the 2030 targets with both types of configuration. CCM as a catalyst-coated membrane. These are putting the electrode straight on the membrane. Catalyst-coated substrate, you can have various architectures of your porous transport layers. You can put your electrodes on those. These also work just fine. And we work with OEMs around the world who create high-efficiency electrodes, including here in Canada. And this is a demonstration of strong intermittency running these on a week-to-week basis. There's a transient voltage increase that's caused by bubble management. This is more of an engineering issue than it is a chemistry issue. And this is related to the porous transport layer. But the point is we can turn this on and off hundreds of times and have no meaningful increase in the degradation rate. In fact, if you look beyond 5,000 hours, and we've done this half a dozen times on that order of time, you see that the degradation rate is exactly the same as traditional alkaline and the best PEM systems in the world, so less than 3 microvolts per hour, and this is consistent across many systems in the stage. And we are now in the process of proving this on weekly, daily, hourly, on-off type cycles. And again, these are systems that these are operational cycles that wouldn't last with other types of electrolysis. Again, more data. And the point is that AEM is the game changer for electrolysis acting as a true grid service. And so happy to discuss with anybody and your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. That was a great presentation. Our next presentation is from Econa Power. Gary, please share your screen and take it away.
Thanks, everybody. I'm just trying to get my screen maximized. Just give me a moment. How does that look?
Good to go.
Great to be here. Thanks for joining. My presentation is a little different than Ben's. Hydrogen is not an energy source. It is an energy currency. It needs to be manufactured. It needs to be produced. And it needs to leverage infrastructure to do that. Ben gave a nice talk on how hydrogen can be produced from electricity and leverage and integrate into the electricity infrastructure, either as an energy storage medium or even just producing hydrogen by water electrolysis through low-cost, abundant renewables. And that pathway is, I think, well understood, and Ben did a good job talking about that. What Econa is doing is leveraging a different part of our energy infrastructure, the natural gas infrastructure. And our company is working to develop and deliver what is called methane pyrolysis, which breaks down natural gas, the CH4 molecule, into hydrogen and solid carbon. And by leveraging that existing natural gas infrastructure, we can deliver hydrogen into industry where it is needed. The technology we're developing, our reactor is called Excalibur, the sword that King Arthur pulled out of the rock. And really, it's supposed to be, evoke the idea that we're breaking apart this methane molecule, where we have this fire sword that is breaking apart a molecule and extracting the valuable pieces from that molecule separately, the hydrogen for its energetic value, the carbon for its molecular value in various industries. What we do is a bit unique. We provide the energy for pyrolysis by combustion. So unlike some other pyrolysis platforms that use electricity to heat up the reactor, because these reactors need to get really hot, we don't use electricity, we use combustion. That means there are some CO2 emissions. There's a CO2 emission with our reactor, but it's low. What we're looking for is the best balance between economics and emissions. So we drive combustion products into the reactor. We use the mixing of gases inside the reactor volume to heat and drive pressure into the reactor, which stimulates the breakdown of that CH4 molecule. Non-catalytic technology, so we don't have to deal with catalysts. Being that is driven by combustion, we anticipate a very highly scalable reactor platform, and it's built on industry standard equipment. We must leverage downstream purification equipment to extract that valuable hydrogen, that valuable carbon, and we leverage existing industry equipment to do that. Our company we're located in Burnaby, British Columbia. We've built a 200 kilogram per day hydrogen pilot at our facility in Burnaby. There's some pictures of that pilot facility. The reactor is, you can see it in the bottom right corner there. And what this is in this Class 1 Div 2 test facility is a reactor train that takes natural gas, pipeline natural gas in, runs it through the reactor process, extracts the solid carbon through conventional filtration techniques, and delivers the hydrogen-rich stream to the pressure swing absorption unit on the bottom left. And so we've been running and testing this equipment now for the last 18 months, producing carbon, sharing carbon samples with industrial partners in the carbon black industry, and evaluating reactor performance, and trying to understand how we can improve our technology to hit what we would call commercial key performance indicators. In 2025, we're going to be introducing a new reactor, a Gen 2 reactor, based on everything we've learned in the last year and a half of testing. That will be built into our lab this year. And we're also going to be expanding and making it larger and building a larger carbon back-end plant. So this will be a continuous operational facility by the end of the year. The key here is really demonstrating commercial grade carbon, because it's a big part of driving attractive economics is to have commercial grade carbon we can commercialize with partners. And that will be a key goal of ours this year. To address economics, we do what most people do. We do techno-economic analysis. And when you're a pre-commercial company, you have to have a lens that looks forward. We completed in 2024 a pre-feed study of our first scale-up effort, a 20-ton per day hydrogen plant, which you can see some renderings here in the picture. So our team took, the work we're doing in our pilot facility and designed out at a fairly early stage a Class 4 estimate for a 20-ton per day facility that would make roughly 60 tons per day of solid carbon. CapEx estimates with EPC firms, OpEx estimates based on, the kind of test results and modeling we're doing. And we do this so when we're speaking with commercial partners, potential customers for the technology, we can start to give them better confidence on what economics look like at this first stop on our commercial trajectory. So this 20-ton per day plant is big, but it's not as big as, the end game. Large refineries and ammonia plants are using hydrogen production facilities 10 times bigger than this. But it's a good entry size for commercialization. And the results are shown on the bottom right in terms of how our technology projects in terms of levelized cost of hydrogen and life cycle greenhouse gas emissions. And we're comparing ourselves to steam methane reforming, the incumbent, and electrolysis, this great new technology for splitting water. And that's really based on public information and today's energy grid and natural gas costs here in Canada. If we took this solution and moved it into South Korea or Europe, that analysis would look different, but the themes would largely be the same. When we look at our technology, we think we provide the best balance between greenhouse gas emissions and cost. But I want to stress again the importance of valorizing the solid carbon and driving economic partnerships in that space. Just a few comments about moving forward. We're developing out this scaled up Burnaby pilot this year. We'll be testing it next year. We have intentions and plans to deploy our first field unit in Alberta called Econa Gold Creek, where we'll be building and testing that throughout 2026 and 2027. And our early commercial deployments will commence in 2028. All of this is part of obviously it's a journey, and we're working with numerous companies who are evaluating methane pyrolysis today to explore their benefits of this technology in their operations, whether they be refining, ammonia production, gas turbine integration, industrial heat. These are all the markets that look to methane pyrolysis as a potential decarbonization solution, something that can be an alternative to conventional steam methane reforming or this emerging carbon capture sequestration solution. We just want to take a moment to thank our partners, fantastic investors. We've been blessed to have very good investors who are highly committed to what we're doing. And of course, our funding partners, not the least of which NGIF is a very valued partner, both from the funding and grant perspective, but also as a key investor to our company. So a special thanks to NGIF, and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Gary. I've turned on everyone's mics and cameras now. You may raise your hand and ask in person, or you can drop your question in the chat. So we do have one question in the chat right now. How can new innovations in advanced materials, catalysts, and membranes contribute to improving efficiency and reducing the costs of hydrogen production?
I guess I can take that one. The big need in AEM electrolysis is really to understand kinetic losses from catalysis. Their alkaline systems should actually be a lot more efficient than PEM systems. The energy gap between water oxidation into the two constituents is actually a lot smaller, and yet you don't see this in real systems. So iridium oxide in particular and platinum do a fantastic job on the PEM side. These are well engineered. On the alkaline side, I think there's a lot of room to grow. Nickel iron oxide is a good standard, but there's quite a lot of catalysis work to be done. There's been something like 3 papers in high entropy alloys in particular, and I think it shows a ton of promise, as well as 3D electrode architectures for bubble management. These are huge gaps that have minimal innovation right now.
Great, thank you, Ben. Our next question is for Gary. Are the costs of turquoise hydrogen that NGIF laid out assuming that you get value from the solid carbon, or are the dollar per kg independent of the carbon? And do you have a high-level estimate of CO2 emissions associated with your process so that we can compare to blue hydrogen?
Great question. First of all, I thought that the presentation from NGIF was accurate, and we support those numbers as well. I presented something in my slide, which was for a sort of an early commercial plant that would produce hydrogen at the $2.50 a kilogram range and emit just under 3 kilograms of CO2 per kilogram of hydrogen. Early commercial platforms. When we scale into full commercialization, larger plants, we see hydrogen production being in the range of $2 a kilogram, comparable to large-scale blue hydrogen. Even less, actually, less than $2, and greenhouse gas emissions that are in the range of 2.5. So meeting the bar, exceeding the bar for clean hydrogen production in Canada, and being comparable or better than blue hydrogen at scale today. This does rely on valorization of the carbon. Valorizing the carbon is important in two ways. One, when you can sell and commercialize the carbon black coming out of the back end, it drives down the production cost of hydrogen, which is, I think, in everyone's interest. And that's kind of obvious. But the more subtle value here is that when you're producing hydrogen and carbon, two products, you get to allocate greenhouse gas emissions to both. And our goal is to produce two products, allocate greenhouse gas emissions to both products, and provide clean solutions to both hydrogen industry customers and the carbon black industry, which in itself is looking for new alternatives for low-cost carbon sources. So this is why valorizing the carbon is important and why creating partnerships in the carbon black space is a near-term priority for Econa.
You're on a roll, Gary, so we have another one for you. How does the LCOH stack up? What percentage or dollar amount is CAPEX and the other elements?
You want to know our CAPEX. That's fine. It obviously depends on scale. So if you're getting into a very, very large plant, the CAPEX takes a smaller portion of the overall LCOH of the hydrogen produced. But let me just broadly tell you it's, a third CAPEX, two-thirds OPEX. Just broadly. It'll change depending on what part of the world you're in and how big a plant you're making. But let's just go with that as a broad brush answer. CapEx is important, clearly. We're always working to see how we can drive lower CapEx because it helps us. But the real key is OPEX. How much natural gas are we consuming to produce those hydrogen and carbon products is the biggest factor in economics for us. And that's why we're so adamant about two things: achieving higher yields in our testing in our Burnaby pilot, making sure we're delivering the very best yields for hydrogen and carbon production. And we're not there yet. We're still working on improvements in this Gen 2 platform we're testing this year. We anticipate will take us there. And of course, valorizing the carbon. I've said that numerous times. So those are both high priorities for us that we're focused on in our Burnaby pilot this year.
Thank you. Our next question is for Ben. What system level approaches and business model innovations can best leverage advances in material science to significantly reduce hydrogen production costs?
Again, I really believe in this direct pairing to hydrogen systems. And so Denmark, for instance, has 10 gigawatts of power to X that they want to allocate. It's just difficult to find systems that can do this direct connection. If you're going direct from solar to hydrogen, you could actually do step up, step down converters. You don't need inverter converter mixes in your power electronics. New approaches to power electronics, new approaches to balance of plant actually affect the 70% of CapEx, that is the rest of the install around the stack. And that can make a huge difference as well. So the benefits of AEM electrolysis, everybody focuses on the stack. It's the easiest to flesh that one out. But there's actually benefits at every level of the rest of the system integration and also its ability to act as a grid service. So this needs to be fully mapped out. Most of the numbers that you can get actually from wind and solar are actually post-interconnect. So you have a 10 megawatt pipe that your wind farm has, and there's attenuation that you don't see. You feather windmills, maybe you can see this a little bit. But in solar, it's completely invisible, and you can leverage the full integration of all of the power that these systems can come out, and that's where you get to these game-changing costs. The world-leading bids for wind and solar are still post-interconnect, and if you look at the capex of these installs for things like offshore wind, half of the cost is the interconnect. You can eliminate all of these things. This is where the true innovative business models come into play.
Thank you, Ben. Our next question is for all the speakers from Hasim. I wanted to ask the speakers how close we are to US DOE hydrogen shot targets, i.e. 1 USD per 1 kg of clean hydrogen, and if this is realistic.
And there's some nuance there because there's the year of the dollar. So $1 a kilogram is, I believe, in 2012 dollars. So we're actually a lot closer than you might think. But for water electrolysis, the only way to do this is direct pairing. There's no way to do this with a grid connection.
Yeah, Gary here. I think for achieving those kind of targets with electrolysis, it definitely requires very low cost electricity, 2 cents a kilowatt hour ish. More than that, we can never achieve that kind of hydrogen production cost because of the inherent amount of electricity required to split water, and we can't change that. But there's potential there, certainly, as we scale up renewables and start integrating them in new ways, as Ben has rightly pointed out. I think for achieving that through the other pathway, through natural gas, we're not there either. We have a lot of work to do. I think methane pyrolysis. Why we picked methane pyrolysis is we thought it was the best way to get there, frankly. If you look at the alternative with natural gas as the feedstock, you have carbon capture sequestration. That is always a cost adder, always a cost adder. You're always adding cost to the existing SMR solution. We feel like the only way to really break the nut is to deliver a valued byproduct from the production of hydrogen, and that's the carbon. And when we do that, if we can do that successfully, scale our technology up, valorize carbon effectively through existing and new markets, we can get to $1 a kilogram. But we have a lot of work to do. We have technology that needs to be improved and commercialized. We have to be a market builder in solid carbon markets and scale this technology with partnerships. The one thing we have going for us is we're building off an existing infrastructure for chemical fuel delivery. The natural gas industry is well established and a great partner and is delivering natural gas extensively across North America and globally to industry. And it's really, for me, the key is developing technology that can extract those two valued components of the natural gas molecule, the CH4 molecule, and build successful markets for those two things. If we do that, we can get to $1. That's my feel.
Yeah, I would like to add to what Gary and Ben said. So when it comes to clean hydrogen, another promising pathway, still in its early TRLs, but thermochemical hydrogen production is one of those that holds a very promising future when it comes to clean hydrogen. So the targets of $1 per 1 kilogram of clean hydrogen, specifically in terms of the thermochemical pathways, is something that holds a lot of promise down the road, given that it primarily depends upon the thermal energy compared to the water electrolysis that is most reliant on the electricity. So the thermochemical pathways, particularly the pure thermochemical pathways that do not require any electricity, when combined with the waste heat utilization sources such as steel plants or the glass making industries or some similar facilities that have higher flow rates of flue gases exiting at much higher temperatures can, provide a very promising alternative to clean hydrogen and a very low cost alternative as well. So thermochemical hydrogen is one of those pathways that are in the race to produce not only clean but cheaper hydrogen, and I think it holds a very promising future.
Thanks so much for that. Samaya, you have your camera on. Would you like to ask a question?
Sorry, I typed my message. I typed it as a text.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Samaya's question is, how much methane is released from the process, and is there any monitoring system in place? And that's a question for Gary.
Oh, okay. Thanks for your question. There's no methane release from our process. There better not be. There isn't. That's not to say there isn't methane released upstream of our process. Yeah. One thing, when we do our GHG emissions analysis, obviously we look at scope 1 emissions of our process and 2 and 3 emissions of particularly natural gas and electricity supply to the process. And the biggest contributor to the LCA is the delivery of natural gas to our plant. That's not missed on us, and we mention it to our investors all the time, who are our natural gas companies. We need to work not only on developing new conversion technology that produces hydrogen at the point of use, but do better at how we get natural gas delivered from our production facilities to these points of consumption. And that's not work that Ekona is focused on, but we're huge fans of it, cheering for it, talking with our investors about ways that can be improved. But methane is not emitted from our process whatsoever.
Thank you.
So we have a couple last questions as we're wrapping up from Alicia Main. Will either or both of these hydrogen production technologies be incorporated into the Atlantic Canada hydrogen hubs to produce hydrogen for export to Germany and the Netherlands? What are the pros and cons of each for that context?
I guess I'll go first. We have no immediate plans to do that. If someone would like to speak to me about that and invite me to participate in some kind of hydrogen hub project, I'm all ears. But at this point in time, we're very focused on getting the technology development at our Burnaby facility and deploying into our Alberta field deployment site at Gold Creek. Export markets are interesting. I do think personally, and this is a position of Ekona, that right now the best way to move hydrogen is to move LNG. Liquefying hydrogen and sticking it on ships and changing the global infrastructure for export, highly expensive and risky, and that's why it's not moving quickly. People don't know what to do. My advice, do what you're doing and focus on the end use conversion at the point of demand.
And I guess to add to that, again, we don't have any plans, but again, if people want to discuss with us, I think there needs to be some demonstration projects of taking intermittent renewables to hydrogen for microgrids. At least 30% of future electricity growth is actually through microgrids, and hydrogen is a wonderful mediator of this. Even if you don't have a salt cavern, there's plenty of ways of storing this. There's demonstration at NREL and other places. But this is particularly important because in Canadian rural communities, we're already paying excessive prices for diesel gensets, and these aren't particularly safe and they're not great for the environment. No matter how you cut it, you could actually do wonderful demonstrator products and make something that's actually more cost effective than the incumbent.
Great. We have one more question left with 3 minutes. So can you elaborate on the potential markets for commercial grade carbon produced through methane pyrolysis and how these markets might influence the overall economics of your hydrogen production technology?
I guess that one's for me. The way Ekona is approaching this market is carbon black is our landing market, asphalt and other construction materials are our growth market. We need to commercialize initially with existing markets in place and existing industrial partners in place, and that's the carbon black industry. We produce carbon black through our non-catalytic reactor. Other methane pyrolysis techniques would not make carbon black. They, make fibers, or we make carbon black. We're talking to carbon black partners now and have been for the last couple of years on and sharing carbon from our production testing with them to get feedback and how can we tailor our reactors so the carbon is commercial grade value for them. And our goal is to collaborate with the carbon black industry today, not to become a carbon black producer, but to have a supply chain partner to the industry, which is the carbon black producer. So we want them to be our offtake partner when we start deploying these plants commercially. That said, it's a small industry compared to the hydrogen industry's potential. And so we need a growth trajectory. And for us, that's construction materials. And we've been testing carbon black in asphalt cement for the last year. It has performance benefits. And our goal is to keep working on that and start developing similar commercial dialogue with that industry as we go. Hope that helps.
Thank you to all of our speakers today. We have 1 more minute left, so we'll be wrapping up now. Right after this, you will receive the recording of this webinar, and also all the speakers will be CC'd. So if you would like to ask them further questions, you can do so then. And thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and have a great long weekend.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, CHA.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Figure.